As we approach 1 year since the Capitol riot, the House Select Committee investigating January 6th is preparing to enter a new phase of its investigation. According to a new Washington Post report, what has mostly been done behind closed doors is expected to become more public. We want to bring in Molly Hooper for more. She is a CBS News political contributor and host of the Article 1 podcast. Molly, great to see you. As we approach the 1 year anniversary of the attack on the Capitol, what do you expect from the House investigation based on the hundreds of interviews they've conducted?
Right, the hundreds of interviews they've conducted and more to come, even behind closed doors. But the chairman, as you said, Benny Thompson, is looking to do more public hearings in the upcoming weeks. They just need to establish what has happened so far and get ahead of that so that when they do have these public hearings, there will be a cohesive story to tell with the questions they ask and the people that they have in front of the committee who will appear in public. Right now, it seems as if the committee is moving towards this phase of what did the president do in that time period between when the rioters breached the Capitol and when the former president, actually made his statement, his public statement. I think it was like 4-something p.m. That those 2 to 3 hours of inaction on the part of former President Trump are key here in what the committee is looking at. And that's what we are going to be, I believe, hearing in the near future. But again, as you said, they have done hundreds of interviews, and there's some key interviews that they would like to conduct in the next few weeks, several of which involve sitting members of Congress.
So when might there be a report out on the panel, and what would that likely include?
Well, that's a good question. The problem is this is an election year. And when you have a select committee like this that has so many political sparks that are flying, it's one of these issues that, of course, the Republicans don't necessarily want to come out before the election, while the Democrats, who think that this is going to look poor for the former president and members of the Republican Party, wouldn't mind if that came out before the midterm elections. However, it will be unclear as to what the committee report will actually say and how it will be received by the various interest groups and parties. So it could be a double-edged sword, but I suspect it would come out mid to earlier in the year. It's just a matter of how much cooperation they get and whether or not they can really make some determinations as to how to proceed with the information that they glean. Will they be recommending criminal charges be filed, or what kind of legislation can Congress take action on to prevent something similar from this happening in the future?
I want to follow up on that. Do you anticipate any criminal referrals from the committee?
Well, see, this is where it gets a little tricky, because the criminal referrals that could be recommended may involve the former president, could possibly, and I don't think so, but could involve perhaps some sitting members of Congress. Again, I don't think so, but at this point, we don't know. And without having an equal number of Republicans who sit on this select committee, again, how these results and the referrals are going to be received will be very much in the eye of the partisans who are watching this closely across the country.
So the committee has already been in touch with Republican Congressman Jim Jordan and Scott Perry. What other lawmakers might the committee be investigating, and is there a chance any of them get subpoenaed?
Well, again, that's another tricky question, because it's one thing to request a sit down, quote unquote, a deposition with a current member of Congress. It's another thing entirely to subpoena that member, to force them to testify and answer questions in the same body. Jim Jordan and Scott Perry have been reached out to by the committee. The members of that committee want to find out what these members discussed with former President Trump on January 6th. Other members who have been mentioned by individuals who have given depositions and spoken to various news outlets include perhaps Andy Biggs, from Arizona, Paul Gosar from Arizona. And so these are individuals, perhaps Mo Brooks, individuals who participated in that rally that led up, that happened before the protesters and the rioters moved up to Capitol Hill, in addition to members who actually had conversations with the former president and former Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, because you have to remember, Mark Meadows was a member of Congress for many years and had very close relationships with a lot of the conservatives in the GOP. He spoke to those individuals as well, and the committee wants to get to the bottom of what they were recommending to former President Trump about taking action, and what they discussed with him in the lead up to that rally.
In an increasingly polarizing environment where we struggle to agree upon a common set of facts, do you anticipate whatever this committee comes out with changing people's minds?
Gosh, you're asking a lot of great questions today. But no, I mean, this is one of those tough situations where, because Republicans are not equally represented on this committee, it will be very difficult for Republicans across the country to necessarily view these as impartial, non-biased recommendations or referrals, and therein lies the problem. So again, it's going to be. I think that it won't change a lot of minds necessarily. In fact, it will probably further entrench the two parties into how they viewed the handling of this committee investigation. And but we're just going to have to see what is said.
So many moving parts to keep watching. Molly Hooper, thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.